Ew, I licked the microphone. Oh my god. How did I do that on accident? Anyway. Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of my podcast, Endless Queries, with your host, Salem. What is up? Hello. If you know me in real life, like, hi, how's it going? How you doing? If you don't know me in real life, I don't know how you found this, but I'm really happy you're here. And I've been wanting to make a podcast for a while. I mean, like actively wanting to, like probably only really like 6 months, but like I've always been a podcast person. And I listen to a lot of podcasts, both of the like fictional scripted variety and of the like super casual talking to. Like, I love all of it, like groups talking, solo episodes. Like, I love podcasts. I think podcasts got me through a really difficult time in my life, and like a time that I was really working really hard, and often I guess in periods of my life when I'm working really hard, um usually podcasts keep me company during those portions of my life when I'm super busy or commuting a lot, or what have you. That all being said, I'm really, really excited. If you can't tell, I have absolutely nothing in front of me. Let's talk about a little bit where I am actually in the moment. And then we'll talk a little bit about what this is. A super informal sort of introduction to the podcast. We'll talk about what I want it to be. I'm learning a lot. So things are going to be weird, like audio wise, probably, and like editing wise, and things are going to be clunky and sound weird. And, I'm learning and figuring it out. And that's honestly like a part of why I wanted to start the podcast too, which I'll get into. But let's talk about the actual place I'm sitting in right now. I'm posting this to YouTube only first, and maybe also my website eventually. So I'm pretty sure this is only available like in video format. But if you're not watching the screen, I am currently sitting on a couch in a living room. This is actually my sister's living room. She just moved in to her new house with her boyfriend, which is super exciting. And I go to the beach tomorrow. I'm very, very excited. It's an annual beach trip with my family. My sister's already there, and I am leaving tomorrow. But before I leave, I promised my sister that I would look after her cat slash our cat, Phil. He was our family cat that we grew up with, and as people are moving houses and we're trying to like integrate cats and stuff, Phil has ended up moving in with my sister, and so I'm looking after Phil right now. That's why I'm here. And I wanted to film an episode, and I figured that this cozy little corner was good enough. That being said, I mean, that was like a really convoluted way for me to say I'm not where I'm normally going to be filming. I don't even know if there's going to be a normal like place for me filming. I actually think it might be fun to like be in different spots a lot. But what I'm trying to say is there's a cat here. I love Phil, and I'm honestly hoping he makes an appearance at some point. But if he's camera shy, like whatever, he doesn't have to make an appearance. I also have not spent that much time here, so I don't know how loud things are, the ambient noise. So if you hear stuff, people might be, walking around, getting in and out of cars. Like, I don't know. So, yeah, that's where I am. Looking after Phil for right now. He just moved into this house with them. And he's still in an adjustment period. So he's meowing a lot more than he typically does. I think he's just bored and like trying to figure himself out. Anywho, that's Phil. Hopefully he says hi. Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is so exciting to be sitting in front of a camera and like doing it. This is not my first time recording a first episode. I also have already recorded my first guest episode, which is going to be dropping, I believe 2 weeks after this episode drops, is the idea, as long as I can get it like uploaded and edited and all that. But I'm so glad that I filmed with Jamie, my dear friend Jamie, first as a guest episode, because I actually filmed 2 versions of this first episode, or kind of like 3, 2.5. But I didn't like them, and I didn't understand why I didn't like them. Well, there were a lot of reasons, but like I was just like perplexed by like how to make the podcast, me listening back to this podcast, like more bearable, and like why I didn't enjoy listening. And it wasn't just the sound of a lot of people don't like the sound of their own voice. So I was like, why am I not, what isn't clicking here for me? And I think after sitting down with Jamie and filming with Jamie, I learned a lot. First of all, that I say like and like, okay, I do a lot of the stuff where I like say, I like when I'm talking with somebody in real life, and they're speaking, I'm doing a lot of the yeah, oh yeah, totally, exactly, and the yes, and then like repeating the last little bit of like their sentences with them. And I actually I'm not like a stemstress, but I think that is like very much like sort of an ADHD sort of neurodivergent trait. And I was like so active in Jamie's listening back. I am like so annoyed with how often like I am just like, it feels like I'm talking over her, because I'm like, yeah, like every 3 seconds, and it's insane. So I learned that about I'm not that mad at it, but I was like, oh gosh, I really didn't realize how often I do that. Anyway, that's just besides the point. There might be a few weird cuts in this episode just due to Phil making noises that I'm like getting paranoid about, that are ultimately fine. Yeah, but I think it's I really learned so much about myself listening back to myself talk for an hour. And I think I am a part of the epidemic that does the likes and the of course. So like, it's something to work about, and like being more intentional about my speech is another reason why I feel like I did not enjoy the experience of watching my first like 2.5 takes back of the solo eps. Is because I was not being that intentional about what I was talking about, and I was being unintentional while also trying to be chronological. And I feel like I felt like I had to update every person on what I've been up to since graduating college, and that's just like, frankly, I mean, like a nice thought, and I think there's a place for that, but that's gonna take a lot of episodes. That's not just one episode. Like, I think also in the way I want to format like my solo episodes, which I can talk about, I don't want it to be necessarily chronological, more sort of based off of a topic, which is a lot more what how podcasts are typically structured. But yeah, I've been looking forward to doing this and practicing this. I have a lot of interest in working in audio formats and working with, all of this technology that I'm not very good at working with. I'm currently like this setup is entirely like of my own by myself. I mean, I have a little bit of help from my dear Alex. Alex is my partner who I live with, if you do not know. Yeah, but let me talk about, so Endless Queries is what I landed on for, because I thought a lot about, why I wanted to start a podcast, what this podcast would be about, all that sort of stuff. And I landed on, I kept on coming back to the idea of my queer identity. For those of you who may not know, as of this moment, my queer identity, how I self-identify, is, as gender fluid, and just, I don't, honestly, sexuality these days, I just say fluid. Like, it's all fluid, baby. Like, all fluid all day. Very queer, very, quasi labeled. In terms of pronouns, I use they, them pronouns. And I actually have been on HRT for about 7, almost 8 months now. I am having a great time, and that's a whole other episode that I would love to just do an episode just on my HRT journey. And that will definitely be coming down the line for sure. But in summary, it's been awesome. And I can't see, don't even get me started, because I will start gushing, and it's going to be a whole episode, and I'm putting it away. Um, Anywho, yeah, and I also wanted it to be sort of centered around queerness, and then I wanted it to be centered around artistry and artists, and because that's just a huge part of my life, is my queer identity and my artistry. I think I mostly do theater and behind the scenes and on stage theater, but I also do a lot of, I think, art and performing art especially has been a really big part of my life, and why I think life is worth living, and why I think we're even here in the first place. So I so those two things, and then I also wanted the opportunity to do solo episodes as well as guest episodes. And so I wanted, sort of a lens to view stuff in, that wouldn't be too broad, but also wouldn't be too niche. And so I landed on that kind of area of where I'm going podcast wise. And I love a good play on words. So I ended up with the query. I love that's a good pun. But there's already was a podcast that has since ended called Query, spelled Queery. And I wanted to have sort of a different separation from that. I'm like, okay, well, what makes me different, and what makes mine, sort of a separate entity from the other podcast that has ended. And I think that I think I ended on Endless Queries just because I have such a focus on being a lifelong learner and never stop being curious and being introspective, and wanting to know more just for the sake of wanting to know more. I think has always been at the core of my being, if not at the core, at least adjacent to the core of my being. I'm such a student and a learner, and I think that has honestly been one of the bigger challenges of not my first few years out of school, is that having to seek that out for myself. And so I think in this chapter of my life, I am kind of pushing myself and really testing that value of you have to, when you're not forced to be a student all the time, how do you make yourself a student all the time? And that's been a part of why I ended on Endless Queries. So that's the title of the show. That's the premise. It's very broad, but also I think looks at the world and kind of summarizes a lot of how I look at most things. But yeah, I hope to have a lot of guests on. If you're a dear friend or family member of mine and you're interested in being on the pod, like, let me know. That would be cool. I'd love to have you on. You don't have to be queer to be on. You don't have to talk about being queer necessarily if you're on. Although I really would love that. But yeah, I filmed a really great episode with Jamie, and I am just really, really excited. I'm gonna take a quick water break, and then let's chat a little more, shall we? Hey guys, back from my litter water break. Where was I? Oh, I was listening back to actually. This is funny. This is funny. I was listening back to what I just recorded just to make sure that everything was sounding good. And the way I was doing the likes and the ums as I was talking about how I do likes and ums and uhs way too much is actually, I find, really hilarious personally. Um, I just, like, it boggles my mind, and I think I actually, it doesn't boggle my mind anymore because I was listening to another podcast that was lamenting this same issue. Oh, Phil's coming down. You're gonna hear a lot of meowing in a little bit. I might have to pause. Maybe I'll let him say hello. But anyway, what I was saying about the likes and the ums, come here, Phil, if you want to come hang out. What I was talking about with the likes and the ums, it's a very, like, Western, so I'm told. It's a very, like, Western, like, American thing to, hi, it's a very Western American thing to not like pauses in conversations. And you can lay down. And I think I just need to pause in conversations and really, really work on actively listening to what I'm saying, you know? See, I just did it. I should just pause there instead. I'm really glad that Phil's come to visit, and he is being quite the little model. Hi, sweetheart. Yeah, but I did want to talk about post-grad life a little bit. Speaking of being hypocritical, I don't want to cover every single thing I've done chronologically for the past year, but I do want to talk about post-grad life because when I was thinking about this podcast and when I was thinking, see, there I go again with the likes and the ums. When I was thinking about starting this podcast, I think it was like essentially a direct reaction to post-grad life and feeling a little bit lost in it. I think when it's in my experience, I have been in some sort of educational or academic institution, sometimes multiple at once, since I was maybe 3 or 4. I mean, like, very, very little. And I'm 23 now, as of this recording. And I think that it's been really amazing and, like, freeing to not be a part of an institution, but also really a struggle because there's a lot of my outlets for the past 4 years, especially, like, speaking directly to, like, my college experience, were a lot of my creative outlets were directly just almost like just dangled in front of my head, just like all of it very much as like a fruit tree of opportunity, and you just picked what you wanted. And if you didn't see anything you like, the garden was fresh. You already had a lot of foundations to sort of do what you wanted and, like, fulfill those creative outlets. And that was, like, a really amazing thing about college. But when I got out into the real world, I don't really like the concept of like real world, because what does that even mean really? And college is also real life. But after I graduated, I turned my creative outlet into my career. And I was like, oh, so that comes with a lot, because especially in this first year as an artist, especially as a theater maker and artist, you, unless you are seeking it and producing it yourself with your own money and doing your own thing, you're not going to be able to get that creative outlet and get paid for it necessarily, at least in the way I like to creatively express myself. Like, you're not going to be able to, do your own work or like get in that. Some people are lucky, for first year out of post-grad, or first even few weeks out of post-grad, maybe even before graduation. Some of these theater makers already have gigs lined up that are super creatively fulfilling and pay, and like, it's great for them. And I literally felt my heart swell, like, just thinking about that for those people. And I wish that every artist could be that way right out of undergrad, but that's not the reality. And that hasn't been necessarily the reality for me, that all the jobs and all the work I've been getting paid to do have been, I'm trying to think if there are any jobs that I've done in the past year that haven't been theater / entertainment related, or artist related. I don't think there is anything that was wildly outside the field, or at least industry. I've stayed within this industry and the work that I've been doing. But to say that it's been creatively fulfilling in a way that some of the productions I was a part of in college, or even some of the assignments I was made to do regularly were, as much it was like, as it was hard to produce and be asked to produce creative things consistently. Like, that's, I think, sometimes goes against the way like my process works for making, in my opinion, like, my best work. But I think it pushed you to do that. And then when you're just out in the world, it feels like you're just floating. So at some point, it got to the point where I felt like I was just floating, because I think for me, it was just a total, it is taking a total mindset shift. And this is, this podcast, me sitting in front of this microphone and talking about this and like creating more in this way and in this self-produced kind of, what is the word for it? Like, just kind of throwing it together to throw it together, producing it to produce it, making art for the sake of making art, and even stretching the boundaries of art. Like, I'm not even sure if like a podcast is necessarily considered art, but it is like media that I want to create, and it is expressive for me. I feel like in this moment I'm expressing myself in a way that's fulfilling for me in this moment. So I'm really excited to like film more and talk more to the camera, and to the microphone, I guess, as it were. But with college versus not college, or just academics, being in academia, being in school, or even like, even like, I think too, the struggle of, there are many people who go right from that academic in the school right to the 9 to 5, which is like a very similar, it's a very similar structure and schedule and all that. And I think this is the first time in my life that it is completely build your own adventure. Like, that's what, I've been freelancing for the past year and a half, and that's what it's been. It's just fully choose your own adventure. And that that is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world, and I knew it wasn't going to be. And I know that I would be a lot less fulfilled if I did have a more traditional schedule and job. But I really realized that I needed to change my mindset, because I think the entire time I was in college, it was like almost I was in this, or in school in general, I was almost in this like, okay, like we're here for the moment, we're making the best of it, we're learning, we're bettering ourselves while we can. But this is all sort of a precursor to something. And that's what, like, and it's kind of almost sad to say, like I mean, living in, I found ways to live in the moment, but a lot of, I feel like education for me was very much like, this is, I'm preparing for something. Like I'm learning this for a reason. Like I'm going to be using, like that's sort of the purpose of education for me, is like, okay, I'm learning this so I can use it in some way, whether that's just to better myself as a person, to expand my worldview, or to actually like develop on a skill. So just to spend my own majority of my conscious life like really thinking about like, oh, this is a precursor to something. I'm prepping for life, essentially. And then now to be told, okay, now here's life, go. Um What do you mean? Like I've been for 20 years I've been preparing for this, and now I'm here and suddenly I don't know what I'm doing. And then how could I possibly not know what I'm doing? I had 20 years to figure to kind of sort of learn and sort of figure out what the world is, what a person is, what that means for me. But I think being without that structure for the first time was so daunting. Um, and I feel there are some days where I am still getting my footing with it. There is a reason why I started this podcast, and it's because I spent so long in college being like, okay, I'm almost there. I just need to get through and I need to get the degree, and then I can start making money for and doing what I love, and I can sustain myself and cover my bills and all of that, and maybe even have some disposable income and have a little fun. God forbid I have a little bit of disposable income. But I just, that was the goal, and that was the mindset of like, oh, I'm sort of training for this to do this. And now that I'm here, it's like, okay. And then right out of college, I'm like, okay, I'm, now's the hunt. We've been talking about this. I've been doing my like career prep classes, the job hunting of it all. Like I'm doing it, like I spreadsheets on spreadsheets. Like I have prepared for this, and then eventually, I mean, it was a journey, and I'd love to talk about that another time. But and then suddenly at some point, eventually, I start getting work regularly for theater. And, I even pick up acting stuff. I'm doing performing, and I'm doing behind the scenes, and, all this stuff, and working for theaters that a year ago I was sitting in, that same theater watching a professional production, wondering where I'd be in the year. And the answer was at that same theater, working in that theater. And that was an incredible feeling. But the reality was, I was simply a technician in a lot of those professional theater spaces. And there were some things, or like I was just taking an acting gig because it was fun to act, and not because I was necessarily very excited by the character or by the content of the show. I felt like I was turning into less of an artist and more of a paintbrush for other artists that have been in the industry longer to use. And that's not that sounds, when I say that, that sounds almost like malicious of them or bad, but no, like that's just like how the industry works. That's not to say, that's not to dog on absolutely anybody. It was just sort of a realization I had to come to in real time by experiencing like being a technician and being an actor and a technician starting out in the professional world, that like you have to, if you want to get paid to do exactly the things you want to do and the shows you want to do and all that, which you're not going to, like, in every project be completely fulfilled, and it's not going to be 100% like what you want to do. That's the nature of building theater. You're building it like together as a community, meaning you don't make all of the decisions. But you know, there are things I want to work on more than others, for sure, and roles and capacities that I want to work on productions in more than other roles. Of course, that's just like the nature of, you know, being a theater artist. There's so many avenues to go down to be a part of making it happen. And I was just grabbing whatever role was there, because that's what you do when you're starting out. And so, you know, my mindset shifted from, you know, I'm training precursor now to I'm hungry, I'm grabbing, I'm getting it, to, oh shit, I have it. Like I'm getting contracts. People are wanting to work with me. Like, things are going generally all right. Like, I'm able to, dare I say, fiscally support myself doing art. Like, that's the goal. That's what I've said every time some skeptic, theater skeptic, as in like, you know, those people I would run into in college when I would say I was majoring in theater, and there's this like tone behind their voice of like, you're not gonna get hired for anything. Like, the goal for me, when somebody would say, what do you want to do with that, being the follow-up to what major are you, is the what do you want to do with that, the answer was always, I would love to make art and sustain myself forever. Like, if I could just be making art and sustaining myself and expressing myself, like, that's the goal. And suddenly here we are. Here's the goal. And then I'm like, oh, you know, I'm working a lot and I'm making art regularly and getting paid for it. And yet I don't know that I'm fully making all the art I want to make. I'm even making art I'm proud of, which is insane. You know, like, I'm being a part of productions I'm proud of. I'm in projects I'm proud of. Some I'm, you know, okay with, and some I'm like really happy to be a part of. And it's like a mix. And like, I'm getting that variety of work that I am enjoying. But then somehow I feel like I'm not artistically expressing myself. And I think it's also because I think my taste in art has only gotten weirder. And so I would love to make more weird theater stuff. And that's just, there's less of a market for that currently, or at least, you know, less of a lucrative market for that. And so there's less professional work and sort of a lot of the stuff I want to do. And it's hard to get your foot in the door. It is famously like, you know, nobody said that theater was an easy industry to get into. Nobody said that the entertainment industry was easy on anyone. Like, from like literally from like the custodial staff in the theater all the way up to the biggest casting director you can think of, which, you know, like, it's a struggle. It is a hard industry. And I knew that going in. I really did. And I think now I'm finding like, oh, okay, wait, no, I think I thought there was like the ultimate struggle of it is so hard to find and keep a job. And that's what I was told was the struggle of the entertainment industry. That was what was sort of drilled into my head, especially growing up around the DC area with like a lot of people who loved art, but also like a lot of military, a lot of like political and like government contractors, and like these people who are making like a lot of money and like didn't a lot of them didn't necessarily like weren't necessarily in love and passionate about what they did, but was like passionate about the way it gave them, you know, security and insurance and like fed their families, you know, sort of deal. um for me to like pursue something less lucrative but more that impassions and fulfills me. um I now I feel like I have more of a weight of like each job. If it doesn't fulfill me, I'm like, well, I'm sacrificing a level of security to be here and be an artist, a level of financial security, a level of job security, insurance down the line. Thankfully, I'm still on my mom's, yay. But like, you know, I'm going to need to worry about the health insurance thing, and I'm going to need to worry about this stuff. And so I think post grad has brought that. And then I think as well as that, it's brought so much possibility, which is so exciting. And I think the struggle going back to, wow, I like really like started yammering and yabbing and yappering there. What to circle back around to what I was originally going to say, and my sort of realization in this moment was, everybody says that the not everybody, but like it's drilled into us that the struggle is getting the job and keeping the job in this industry. That's not always the struggle. It is one of the big ones. Like, do not get me wrong. It is one of the things that is hard about this industry. But there's also a lot of different things that are hard about this industry, as well as other industries too. For example, like scheduling and like, you know, I was, you know, finding a period where I was like saying yes to everything because I was finally getting the work. And then finally I found myself doing, you know, stuff like, you know, 8 shows a week contract and lots and lots of over hire back to back. And like, nobody is regulating that time but you. And so, and then you were like, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm working too much. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm working too little. So there's the struggle of balance, right? As well as security. And so I think that's been really unexpected about post grad, is just discovering that there are struggles with this industry other than the main one. My laptop is about to die, so let me go plug it in, and we'll keep on yapping and yammering. Okay, so clearly time has passed. I do like this framing way better, and it was a complete accident. I don't know how I got here. I don't know how to make the framing like the framing was. Here, we'll zhuzh up our little set here. Adjust the blanket, make it all cute. I like this pillow. It's my favorite pillow in the house, I think. It has ginkgos on it for people who are only listening. So hey, I'm back. I basically realized that I needed to take time to let my laptop to charge, so I took that time. And as you can see, the framing's totally different because I did take my phone off the tripod, and now I can't figure out how to get it back. And also, the sun has started to sort of move as it does, you know. I think now that I've talked about a lot of how post-grad life has been for me so far, I want to talk about what I want it to be going forward, because I think that's really important. Because I think The way I was talking, I think I was sounding a lot more negative than it was. Like I do feel was often feeling fulfilled, but I think at this point with the work I have been doing, if I continue to do it the way I am doing it, I'm not going to continue to be fulfilled. Like it's not sustainable in its fulfillingness. And I think that is also unique to me in some ways and not unique to me in some ways. I think there are a lot of people who start doing the work that I'm doing and they find their niche and they like stay in that niche that whole time and they have a really successful and fulfilling career for them. Um, and I am almost envious of those people. I am envious of the people who are in love with that one niche thing and can do it all day, every day, and never get tired of it. I really wish that were me, but I love variety. Is there too much space above my head? I feel like I should maybe it's tilted up. It's bothering me. Oh, I just need to sit up. That's the okay. So this doesn't even matter if you're not watching. And it doesn't even really matter that much if you are watching. Anywho. I'm looking off to the side, and if you've seen me touching things either in front of me or to the side of me, it's my laptop. It's a really complicated technical setup. Really complicated, like not at all, but it's not important that you know how I'm recording this. That you know, all that you know. All that you should know is that I'm not like looking off to my laptop and like reading text or reading anything. I'm literally like looking at myself. Like I'm right there, which is I don't really like, but I've realized that if I don't keep an eye on it this way, then we'll turn out where I was filming with Jamie. We had like many technical errors, and one of them like left the last 10-15 minutes of the podcast with audio only. So I do have to get used to sort of looking at myself but not staring at myself. Like I want to look this way, but I also want to be checking in with myself, because if my laptop falls asleep or if the framing's weird or if the is this interesting? Does this matter? Do I care if you care? Okay. Back up. Okay. Yeah, I think that's another challenge of this podcast is who am I doing this for, and what is my audience are two kind of sides of the same coin of like questions I've been asking myself. Who am I? Because like, how do I address this microphone, this camera, is there a collective we? Do I assume that you know me? Do I assume that you don't know me? Like, do I assume you know me? Do I assume you've listened to every episode as time goes on? And then I stop and go, I think I might be overthinking this a little bit. And I think it's because I've been thinking about starting this podcast for 6 months. 6 months. Wow. 6 months. And I haven't started it. And so thinking about it more is actually like, not going to help at some point. So here we are sitting and doing. Yay! I mentioned before I want to really delve into like my HRT journey, and just like I think that'll also be tacked on to like I'll do a full like hour and a half episode where I just like I know I literally said I wouldn't do chronologically, and I probably won't be fully chronological, but I just like really delve into my queer journey and my story up until this point. I think that would probably be really helpful. I think another reason why I feel like called to this podcast and why I feel called to making this podcast queer, explicitly queer, is because I think there's been a lot of sentiments. I came out kind of like in the grand scheme of things early, but in that moment in my life late, I did not realize or think about or genuinely consider that I might be queer until I was like 16, 17. I really, really was down with the cis straight thing for quite a while. And I mean, there were a lot of reasons for that. which I would love to go get into it in that like long gender and sexuality journey episode. That's gonna be a really fun and maybe hard episode to film, but I really look forward to delving deep into that. Um, let's see. Yeah. Oh, what was I saying? What that made me think of is that starting this podcast and why I wanted to start the podcast with the queerness thing, and do it with that lens really explicitly, is because I have been in this post-grad world and life of mine. I've been thinking a lot about, my deeper purpose in life and my deeper purpose, sort of just like in the world, why I'm here. And I really continuously keep finding this through line and this undercurrent of like, I want to show people an option of life. I want to be proof that, oh, this is an option. Not to say that I want to do the newest, most, like the path, the least trodden path. Like, I think the path I'm going down in a more sort of anti-capitalist, like almost punk, like lifestyle, and like belief system and approach and philosophy of the world, it's not new. But I think in like thus far in my life, I have been the first person that is like that for many people I've met. And I'm not saying that as a guess. Like, people have told me, you are the first blank I've met. You are the first person that does this. You're the first person who thinks this way. And I think that there are so many people in my life who have done that for me, and they are the reason I've been able to do that for others. And I want to almost make that my purpose. And I think a lot for the longest time, I thought like the traditional theater, musical theater star route, like as in my childhood, I thought like that was the route for me, and that was my purpose, and performing was my purpose. But the purpose that gives me a deeper sense of peace is being an example of a way of life you can choose, that you can reject a lot of, typical society or typical life path choices and still be really happy. And you can pick and choose what you want to do in this life, and that you have options. And I think that also, I want to say right now, I realize that comes from a place of privilege. I think it's because I've been offered so many choices in my life and options in my life that I'm able to be here in front of this, but I can't, the camera and microphone. But I sort of want to show people an avenue that you can go down, and an option that you can go down. And I think queerness and my queerness have allowed me to do that really easily for other people. I think that, and I want to talk about this a lot more and bring on a lot more people onto this podcast that have similar experiences. Like, I often in many spaces find myself the only gender fluid person in the room, the only trans person in the room. It's pretty frequent. And I don't always think that is sometimes a positive thing and sometimes a negative thing, and sometimes it does not matter at all. And I think that it's made me realize that when I am the only person in the room that has my identity, that I need to really be there, and I really need to show up, and I need to be the example of, oh, you can be trans and not just binary, like, not, I say just binary, hello. Hello. You can be a different gender every day type of trans, and still get employed regularly, still be an artist, still be an actor and a performer that gets cast in various roles. I think that's a really big thing for me, like being a gender fluid actor, which I would love to get into again in this podcast. I could talk about that for a really long time. Wow. I'm super rambly. Yeah. But in conclusion, I think that I pause. Before I wrap up, I want to talk about what I want the future to look like going forward in this postgrad. I want to make weird art. I want to travel more. I want to connect with more people. I want to be more loudly curious. I want to ask more people more. I want to ask people more bold questions. And, I want to continue to not only be curious, but act on my curiosity. And I want to express myself more. I want to make more stuff like this, and I want to use this as an excuse to connect with more people, and I am really looking forward to auditioning more in postgrad. I've been doing a lot, but I'm going to be doing even more. Oof, excuse me. I'm really looking forward to visiting Jamie in Chicago. She's moving to Chicago real soon. Actually, by the time you are listening to this, Jamie is in Chicago. And so that'll be really nice to release that episode about halfway through August when she's like well into Chicago. And other things that I'm excited for in the future post-grad. I'm really excited to continue to live with my partner, who's really awesome. And, building my community with them and expanding our circle with them and, creating a little family. I'm really excited. Family, not as in like kids. Please, but maybe even pets. Ooh, if I get a pet. Stay tuned. Any other things I want to leave you guys with today? I'm wondering. Okay. Here's my thing. I love podcasts. I love podcasts. And if you've listened this long, you either really love me or you also just really love podcasts. So every episode that I do a solo episode, I want to leave you all with a podcast recommendation. I'm going to leave you with my tried and true, my absolute favorite podcast for many years, Bingetopia with Julia Hava. It was previously when I started listening, Julia Hava and Eliza McLam. It's like a pop culture-y, dissect-y, intellectual, chronically online sort of podcast that I really think I really adore. Again, it used to be Eliza and Julia, but now it's just Julia. Sometimes she does solo episodes, and often she has lots of guests on, and it is I just love it. It's such a good listen. It really does an amazing balance of making you laugh, making you existential, making you intellectual and introspective. So highly recommend. Go check out Bingetopia. All right, and I think that's all. Thank you so much for listening to the very first episode of Endless Queeries. I'm Salem, and take care. I'll see you next time. Bye.